Okay. Now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Talk Horror to Me. I am joined today with my actual host, Miss Brook Wright, and I am your co-host today, Miss Jennifer Ann Gordon. Brook, thank you for asking me to be part of your show, Talk Horror to Me, on your new YouTube station. So I'm very excited.
Thank you. I wanted to start it because I love horror movies. So I'm like, maybe I can have Jennifer co-host horror books. But yeah, but I wanted to talk about like comic books, horror books, like everything horror.
I love that. So I am also a fan of all things horror. Maybe not all things horror. I don't get into like the torture stuff.
Oh, no.
But predominantly I am a horror reader, watcher, comic book reader. So Brooke, when did you get involved in the horror community? When did you fall in love with the creepiness?
When I was younger, maybe I would say 12. I was still a little scared. Like when I was watching, my very first movie I watched was Candyman, and I'm still a little scared of Candyman and the Leprechaun. I'm really scared of the Leprechaun. Still,
So,
I'm 33. I'm scared of the Leprechaun.
The first scary movie I saw was Poltergeist. And I didn't finish it. I might have been 4 or 5. And I remember I never slept well when I was a kid, and I would always sneak downstairs and like talk to my parents, and they'd be like, "Oh gosh, just go to bed." And my mom was watching Poltergeist, and for some reason she let me stay up and watch part of it. And I was so scared because it also involved a little girl, and to this day, even though I don't think in the long run that that's a super scary movie, I'm petrified of it. Wow. Now, like still scared of it, and I don't think I've finished it ever. And I'm 40 plus years old.
Wow. My mom said the same thing. She was like, when I was a kid, your grandmother would not let me watch Poltergeist because she said it was too scary. And she said she tried to stay up to watch it and she was scared too. I was like, really? I was like, you're not scared of anything. Now that she's like in her 50s, she's not scared of anything. And I'm like,
right. Yeah, but I don't think you ever get over those like first things that you were scared of. So like mine was Poltergeist, yours was Candyman, which is a really intense movie to have your first scary experience.
I was like, man, but I'm waiting for the remake of it because Jordan Peele is supposed to do the remake of Candyman. So hopefully, good job.
I think he will. I don't think there hasn't been too many Jordan Peele things that you just go, oh, that missed the mark completely. Yeah. Like he's doing really well. Are you watching Lovecraft Country?
Yeah, me and my boyfriend started that. Okay. Show. It is so good.
I have not watched it yet. I am about to start reading the book. So I was like, I need to read the book first because I'm one of those people. And I also, for those of you who are watching this later, I also host a show called Vox Vomitus. It's a podcast about writing, and we have Matt Ruff, the author of Lovecraft Country, coming on our show in November.
It's awesome.
I'm like scared, excited.
Wow.
I'm just gonna fangirl out.
I'm just excited that Lovecraft Country, it does like talk about Black history and like slavery and stuff like that and what happened in Black history. And I'm like really excited because it's factual. It's not like they made it like sugar coated. They made it like it really was. And I'm like, wow.
And so what I'm excited about for Lovecraft Country is that, and to be honest, H.P. Lovecraft is, one of those horror icons, but in real life, even though he apologized for it later in his life, he was a terrible racist.
Wow.
So I have this love-hate relationship with Lovecraft, anything, because it's hard sometimes for me to separate the man from the art. So so I think this is a really great way for, people of color to reclaim like the coolness of H.P. Lovecraft and make it their own.
Right.
And just say like, F you racism. We're taking this back.
Right.
And so I'm excited about that.
Man, and then they have sci-fi mixed in with the show. I'm like, this crazy. I've never thought of it like that, like, at all.
So I'm still stuck on like, okay, you watch Candyman when you're a kid and you're petrified. Why did you go back to horror? Because I mean, I know why I went back to horror, but why did you? A lot of times people will watch something and be scared and then not want to go back.
Because of Nightmare on Elm Street. Like,
yes,
that's my favorite, Freddy Krueger. Like, I have dreams about Freddy Krueger. It's weird. When I was younger, I had dreams about Freddy Krueger and I wasn't scared of him. And I was like, man, I really like Nightmare on Elm Street. I like all of them, even the ones that are terrible.
Yes. So Nightmare on Elm Street was the first, not really the first, but I think it's what reinvigorated my love for horror. I was in 6th grade and I saw Nightmare on Elm Street on HBO when I was sleeping over at a friend's house.
Oh, wow.
Because I wasn't allowed to watch those things. And then I loved it. I was like obsessed with like, this guy haunting people's dreams. And in 6th grade, I wrote Nightmare on Elm Street fan fiction, like basically like, fake Nightmare on Elm Street stories. And I turned it in for a school assignment. And my teacher just wrote the word no on it. I didn't get a grade. I didn't get detracted, but just like, this is not what I want to read. Because I rewrote it like Freddie and Nancy had almost like this romantic relationship.
Wow.
And I was, 11 and I had never kissed anybody. So I didn't understand romance. But I remember this scene that I wrote with like Freddie like caressing Nancy's face and then like, and very Edward Scissorhandsy, like, oh no, I've cut her.
That's funny.
It's so stupid, but but I loved it so much. Yeah, so you went from Candyman to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
So you're not afraid of like the gory stuff, right? You don't care. No,
not at all. I like the gory, the blood slash and stuff. Like, I don't know why. I just like it. Like, I find it funny, and I'm like sitting here laughing in the movie theater. If I go to a horror film, then my friend, she said she wouldn't go with me anymore because I was laughing at Insidious when we was watching Insidious. Like, she was terrified of it, and I was sitting there giggling. I'm always giggling anyway, but I was like extra giggling, and she was like, "It is not funny." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
See, I've gotten a stronger stomach over the years, so I don't mind most of the gore now. There's certain gory things that I just can't handle, like needles in the eyes.
Oh wow,
I can't do that. Or like people ripping off somebody's fingernails, like those things. But like I could watch somebody get their head chopped off or their finger chopped off, but like their fingernail pulled off. I can't do it. So like I've never seen the Saw movies because I just know that I would have like a panic attack.
Oh wow, yeah, because they're
disgusting.
A lot of stuff in there. Well, some of the horror films that I don't like I don't like if I'm eating anything, I cannot watch slime or drool or spit or like slimy stuff. Like it just, I'll throw up. I have a weak stomach for that, but guts, I'm fine with. I can eat when I'm watching, but not when they're drooling and stuff. I'm like, ugh. But my boyfriend's like, why can't we watch this? I'm like, because he's drooling and I'm trying to eat and it's slimy and like snot. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah. I can't do horror while I'm eating, just for the simple fact that I know at any point in time somebody could get stabbed in the eye and I need to like cover my eyes before that happens. You can usually sense when it's about to happen in any movie where you're like, oh, that person's getting stabbed in the eye. So I don't like to eat because I need both hands free to go, oh my gosh, is it done? Same thing if I watch, I like to watch things about like old asylums and like old ways that they did like lobotomies and stuff. And that's through the eye. So, but I weirdly like the movies and the shows. So I'm riveted until they get to the point where like the tool is right there. And then I'm like, I have to go into the hallway.
People always like, they're always, whenever they take my blood, they're always like, why are you staring at the needle? Like if I'm staring at it going in me, it won't freak me out. But if I look away, then I'm like, but I'll sit there and watch them stick the needle in my arm. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, you're just watching me. I'm like, yeah, because I have piercings all over my face. I've had snake bites. I've had my nose pierced, every piercing you can think of on my face. And they're just like, why are you watching? And I'm like, it doesn't bother me. But
I won't judge you. I've got 13 tattoos.
Yeah, that doesn't scare me either. But certain spots, it scares me. But
certain spots for piercings scare me too.
Like when I got my nose pierced, I was like, did you even stick the needle in? And he was like, yeah, we're finished. And I'm like, oh, okay. And with my lip piercings too, with both my snake bites, I was like, did you even put the needle in yet? And he was like, yeah, the needle's like sticking out of your mouth. Don't you see it? I'm like, no. My friend recorded it too. And I was like, is it even in? And he's like, yeah. And she started laughing. I'm like,
well, I'm surprised you didn't go into the medical field then.
No, because then I have to
deal with work.
Drool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the drool. It always comes back to drool. You're like, I'd be a nurse, except there's drool involved.
Yeah. I can't do it. Like I praise dentists. I'm like, how are you looking at drool all day? She's like, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, ugh.
All right. So is Nightmare on Elm Street still your favorite horror movie?
It is. Yeah, it is. But I like Insidious too. Like it's way up there, like at the top. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I always get it because I have like a core group of movies that I think are my favorites. But depending on my mood, like if I'm in a kind of like a bitchy mood, then I'm like, I'm gonna say like I just want to see a slasher film. Like, but my favorite horror movie is probably The Orphanage. Have you ever seen that? It's Spanish. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It has everything I like. Creepy old house, creepy children, everybody's sad. It's on the ocean. There are ghosts. So The Orphanage is it's about a woman who goes, she purchases this large it used to be an orphanage and she was raised there. And so she purchases it and she and her family move to this orphanage and they decide to make it a home for sick children. But their child has AIDS. So there's a lot going on. And you never know exactly what's going on. Like if it's ghosts, if she's going crazy. And it's beautifully shot. If you are willing to read subtitles, The Orphanage is one of my favorites.
I'm gonna look that up. I saw it on Netflix. I don't know if they still have it on Netflix.
I don't know if they do either. But at the same time, like, so I like that, but then probably my guiltiest pleasure, and I haven't seen it in years because I don't even know if it's available anywhere, is this movie called Happy Birthday to Me. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, it's either from the early 80s or the late 70s. And it's about a teenage girl who gets in a car accident and then she has like amnesia and she's traumatized and she slowly tortures all of her friends to death and then like puts their bodies around a table and then like comes out with a birthday cake for herself.
What?
It's gross. It's so gross and it's awesome. And the girl who stars in it is Melissa Sue Anderson, and she was on the Little House on the Prairie show. And then she was in this movie when she got a little older.
Wow.
I watched it so many times when I was a kid because it would always play on this TV station by my house that did creature double features or like Spooktacular October, and all they would do is play horror movies, but they were very edited. So as a child, I would watch it and I'm like, I got all the scares, but none of the gore. And then as an adult, I found like a VHS of it at a horror convention, and I bought it. And I was like, I love this movie. And I didn't realize how disgusting it was. like,
Wow.
like people getting killed with shish kebab skewers and like,
Wow, there was one old 80s movie I watched where they did that. They was at a camp. It's not Camp Crystal Lake or anything like that. Not Friday the 13th.
is it Sleepaway Camp maybe?
I think so. Was it like where the guy was the girl? Like it was weird. Like it was a girl, a female, but her brother had died and then she turned into her brother. Like they made her brother. It was weird.
Oh, that could be Sleepaway Camp. Honestly, some of those camp ones just all blend together for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I like Tales from the Crypt too.
Oh
When
yeah.
I was a little kid, I used to watch that. Those didn't scare me surprisingly as a kid.
No, they didn't scare me either.
Like Demon Night and all those. It was good. I like watching them when I was 8 years old. I'm like, ooh, Tales from the Crypt is on. I knew the theme song and everything.
Now, so you have this like beautiful bubbly personality, and like you're very giggly and like sweet, and I'm just gonna say I'm some of those things. I have a bubbly personality. Do you ever get people who like look at you and say, you don't seem like a type of person who would love horror so much?
I do get that. They was like, what, you're doing the horror stuff? And I'm like, yeah. And I can't even say it right. My woman's like laughing at me because I say horror and it sounds like I'm saying horror. And I'm like,
yeah, I say it the same way.
And
So every time I have 2 books published, sorry, you can probably hear my dog barking. I have 2 books out that are horror novels, and then I have a 3rd book coming out that's a horror novel. And my mom, every time like I have a book coming out, she's like, is this one going to be nice? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by nice? I think it's nice.
right.
She tried to read my first one. She's like, is everybody dead? And I'm like, they're not all dead.
Wow.
But a lot of them are dead. Some of them don't know they are.
So are you ever going to do audiobooks? Like, because I love audiobooks.
I love them too. I haven't done it yet, but it's not off my radar. So especially my first book, Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, I have the perfect voice actor that I want to use. And it's somebody I know, it's somebody I've worked with in the past. He'd be the perfect narrator for this book. But unfortunately, there's this pandemic that's going on, and we haven't been able to connect as much because he doesn't live around where I do. But I do want to do audiobooks because I love them.
Man, I'm doing a horror theme book too. My very first book, I'm writing it, and it's horror themed.
I love it. So, okay, we've talked about a little bit about our favorite horror movies. I don't know how much time we're going to have left. Do you have a favorite horror novel that you've read?
My favorite horror novel. I've read so many books. I got it on my phone too. I liked Misery by Stephen King.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite books. Like, the movie did it no justice. I'm like, she was way crazier than...
She was way crazier. The movie was good. I loved the movie, but sometimes especially with Stephen King books to movies, I feel like I have to separate them because he puts so much into his novels, and there is no way it can be in a movie. Like, the movie would have to be 20 hours long.
He does. He put so much detail in there of like, I'm like, wow, it's completely different from the movie. Like, she was crazy in the movie, but in the book, like, I didn't know she did all this stuff. I'm like, wow.
They so do you watch the Castle Rock TV show?
Yeah,
It's on
me and my boyfriend just finished the second one about
the
Annie
second
Will.
one. Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I thought they did a good job with her in that version because it really gave you like a lot of background on her and why she was the way she was.
Yeah. She didn't even have to do what she did, but I'm like, wow, she should have just came forward. Everything would have been fine for her, but she just crazy. I'm like,
So Misery is probably your favorite horror novel.
Missy's mine. What's yours?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask this because I asked you. My go-to favorite horror novel is Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Because I think that is what shaped me the most as a writer. But again, depending on my mood, sometimes I can say it's Ghost Story by Peter Straub, because that Ghost Story by Peter Straub and The Haunting of Hill House are the only two books that I've had to physically stop reading because like my insides were shaking. Wow. And I was actually scared, like actual real fear. And I've read both of them multiple times now at this point, and they still get to me. Like Haunting of Hill House, I have a tattoo of it, a quote from it on my arm, which just says, "Whose hand was I holding?" And that was my point in the book that I thought was the scariest. Simple line, but I was like, so I knew I had to get that tattooed on my body forever.
But I mostly like, when it comes to horror books, I like reading anime horror theme books or comic books. Yeah, like I have a whole list of them. I can't name them by heart, but I have a list of them on my phone. I'm like, wow, because I like anime and comic books. And
okay, so you're like, yeah. So this is another place that I love this because we're different here. I don't necessarily like manga or like Japanese comic books. I like the stories a lot, but I'm not a huge fan of the artwork. But I liked when I read Ring You, I read all the Ring Japanese comic books when those came out, the graphic novels, and I loved them. I do love horror comics though. Like everybody, Brooke and I were chatting before we went live or before we started taping. I used to own a comic book store, and one of the things I loved to collect were 1950s horror comics, which were really just so twisted. and you wouldn't think they would be because it was like the 40s and 50s, but it was before there was a comic book code and things had to be like nice and polite. These comics were gruesome and beautiful and drawn so well, too well.
Wow, man.
So I feel like we can have next Sunday and the Sunday after that and the Sunday after that and the Sunday after that some good discussions of what we like and what we don't like, because so everybody who's listening or watching this, next week we're going to talk about The Haunting of Bly Manor. Yes. Which I'm just going to go on the record right now by saying I loved it. Brooke, how did you feel about Haunting of Bly Manor?
I didn't like it.
Okay.
I kept falling asleep.
All right. So this is what people have to look forward to next week, where Brooke and I get in a horror-themed cat fight via Zoom. And yeah, that'll get the viewers.
I'm excited to talk about it. I already got what I have to say now. Oh,
I know. I was like taking notes while I was watching it because I'm like, I can't wait to talk to Brooke about this. So I'm excited for next week. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's watching now. We had some technical difficulties, but those won't happen next week because they won't. Yeah, because we know what we're doing now. We're professionals. So Brooke, I know you have a website. Tell everybody your website, and then I'll blab about mine.
My website is She Blurbs. I do a podcast on there and this show on there. So if you want to know more information about me and Jennifer, you can look on my website. I'll be posting stuff on there throughout the week. I post almost every day on my website and on the social media. So you'll get to see everything.
And so my website, if you're looking to know more about me, I am a novelist and I'm also an artist. So my website is jenniferannegordon.com, and that's Ann with an E. You can pretty much find everything you need to know about me there, besides stuff about my dog that you just have to go to my Facebook for. But other than that, thank you, Brooke. Thank you, everyone watching. First episode of Talk Horror to Me in the books.
Thank you all for watching.